Welcome back to another episode live from FutureBuilt. We are now joined by Maureen. Maureen, thanks for joining us.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks.
I imagine, well, at least here, a lot of individuals know who you are, but paint the picture. Who is Maureen? Where were you? Where are you now?
Okay. I started on the investor side, so we're for very big investors. Sam Zell, Prudential, love the business. Tech was emerging. And when we sold our service company to Cushman, I went to Grubb Ellis and moved from the ownership investment side more into a true on real estate service provider. So I've spent really the majority of my career at firms in executive roles at Grubb Ellis, CBRE, JLL, and then WeWork. Taking all of that, a team and I have built some tech businesses, bought some tech businesses. I advise different firms that are investing in tech. And in general, I love the industry, but I love what's happening right now with all the shift and transformation for owners as well as corporations.
And we're at a conference yesterday, or at least an event yesterday, and also today, very centric around data infrastructure, data integrity, how to use data, how to get the most out of data. And you said something interesting about the misconception around data being the new gold. What's your general perception of data infrastructure in the space, where we're at right now, the challenges that lie ahead?
Yeah, the funny thing about data right now is we have lots and lots of data. So for data to be the new gold, that's not true. It's like data is like sawdust. There's so much of it. And so in my mind, you really have to be clearly understand what data is missing. Unfortunately, a lot of the data we actually need is not even being captured systematically at all. So you need to understand what data you need, what data you have, and then how do you sift through all of that sawdust to actually find these little nuggets that you actually need that are valuable, and then use those to analyze. Unfortunately, people think you could put, AA on top of any one of their current stacks that they've got of tech, and depending on how well they've been managing their data, they can get some really bad results. And I think from an ethics perspective, which is broader in the industry, I'm a chartered surveyor. I'm a counselor of real estate. I'm very involved right now with the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. I'm currently the senior vice president for the organization, an organization that's been around for several hundred years, which is founded in the premise of ethics, protecting the public, protecting the consumer, and ultimately the ethics around using AI in a responsible way that you're getting the right results is a topic that's coming up very quickly as AI becomes more ubiquitous.
Yeah. The AI piece is interesting. I'm thinking, I put this in my newsletter a couple weeks ago. Deloitte they have the real estate outlook survey. And they had a couple of really interesting, impactful graphics. One of them, though, for the 2026 survey, which they already just published recently, they compared with the 2025 survey. And there were basically a survey question of where do you see your current position or posture around AI? And it went from, I'm just getting started, data is a challenge, to this is going to have transformational impact. And the numbers of respondents who said this will have transformational impact dropped significantly from the 2025 survey to the 2026 survey. Same with just incremental value. And then the other side, data readiness is still an issue, went much higher, right? So everyone was very bullish on AI in 2025. And I think as they've gotten into it, they've realized, oh, wait, this isn't quite ready for me to directly, and that was real estate general. It wasn't operations, facilities, investment. It seems like that's data that backs up kind of what you're saying to some degree.
Yeah, it's like, putting a firecracker in the middle of the table and lighting it off, and then you start seeing the results and you just want to put it out for a minute. So, not that you don't like it, it's just it's not the place for it.
Yeah.
So I think the problem with a survey like that is, though, if you look at any organization, there are unbelievable advancements happening in areas where they're more core to the business, not so much on the service side or the property side, but a very massive increase in the use of bots from any sort of repeatable back office, going from offshoring to bringing it back to just use, literally bots for so many things, customer interface, accounting processing. That's been really widely adapted, and it's advancing business profitability. It is impacting employment. There's a lot of social issues around that piece. And I don't think there's a tremendous amount of talk, because sometimes a client, when they find out that they're paying you a certain fee and most of it's, and some of it's going to these bots that they thought was a head count, you're kind of opening up a conversation on pricing. So those advances are happening and they continue to happen. As far as the pure on applicability to portfolio optimization, lease administration, transactions management, I met someone the other day. He's launched a brokerage company. They've been growing using a massive amount of AI and process. What he said he learned was they were going to run out and launch this thing. They got funding. And he said what he didn't understand was the excruciating pain of understanding your processes, mapping them, mapping the process, mapping it, and then getting the data to flow through a process in order for them to then use the AI. So his advice to everyone was it didn't matter what you were implementing it on in the business itself. That process has to be predictable. It has to be consistent. It has to be widely used. And so in my opinion, the big groundbreaking change that's going to happen for most firms is far more adaption of automation in end-to-end workflows. Because those end-to-end workflows, I think, are the game changers for any service company or owner in order to gather the right data, the consistent data, and then use the AI.
One of the other interesting questions from that survey was about what parts of your life cycle as an owner or operator of real estate will AI be most impactful. And it was much more front-loaded is the way I describe it: design, construction, leasing, accounting, and then things like facility management were kind of at the back end of.
That's right, because that's the maintain. So if you, again, piece, so if you think about everything from site selection to costing, going back to the surveyors for a minute, there are like 20 there's different pathways to becoming a chartered surveyor. One of the fastest growing groups are the quantity surveyors. Now, the quantity surveyors, it's not like you think of someone who in the U.S., like a land surveyor. These are cost surveyors. They're building up the cost evaluation, and then they work with project management to figure out those costs. They're also then getting very, very involved in smart building technology with the development team.
Interesting.
What we're finding, though, is if you think of any real estate cycle, there are only 2 times that an investor makes the most important decisions, significant decisions around value. It's when they buy, and it's when they sell. Okay? So there's clearly tremendous focus on either development or buying something and then exiting that investment. The hold period, though, is very important to maintaining and enhancing value, but it's not going to be that hit that you get on these major transactions. So it's clear that if that's where the value is, that's where the focus will be. But as a result, you are beginning to see some sort of breakthrough technologies happening where they're trying to create more workflow technologies. Some of the big major contractors are, because what they've realized is the beauty of a workflow is now you can have interaction between different groups. Construction's so inefficient. So if you think about all of the different groups, everything from the trades to the surveyors, to the architects, to the construction teams, to the various subcontractors, it's inefficient. It can take days to lag. With a workflow tool, with everyone feeding the blueprints in, feeding the as-built change orders in one tool, it becomes so much more elegant. And then when you hand that over to the maintain people, they have everything. And they know what's behind the wall. They know what change order happened. It's there.
It's all there. It's funny because you talk to folks who are running facilities, and a lot of times in terms of why don't you spend more to upgrade the building, a lot of times the answer is, well, when we bought the building, we built a capital plan and we're not changing that, which means we're not spending more money on something that we didn't already budget. And so the chillers don't need to be replaced for the next 5 to 8 years during our hold period. We're not going to invest in the chillers unless it's an emergency.
Unless it's emergency or it's required by law or compliance.
Exactly.
So they're not going to avoid regulatory compliance, things like that. But keep in mind, those are also changes that happen during an investment cycle that they have to plan for. So if you think of investors, they are managing typically other people's money to get a return. And if that was your money in that building, you probably too would be saying, don't replace that chiller, please.
So another workflow topic that's, I wouldn't say it's overtly discussed here at FutureBuilt, but an underlying topic is you have different systems, 2 core systems when it comes to running facilities. You have building automation systems or generally controls. The other side, you have a CMMS, computerized maintenance management solution, sometimes now called an IWMS. There's a bit of a debate I see. I've covered this in my newsletter around do those solutions come together or not? And there are some companies out there that actually have solutions that connect them. I think an opportunity for AI will absolutely be, we get a lot of alarms for the building automation system. Can that just in an automated way be turned into work orders? But I've also heard the flip side of, well, those are different teams buying different solutions with different budgets. They won't merge together. I'd just be interested in that broad topic because I think this will become a bigger trend moving forward. I don't know that I have a decision on they come together or they don't yet, but I'm watching it.
But my question would be, why wouldn't they?
Well,
because ultimately, what are you doing if you're in the maintain period?
Yeah.
I don't care if you're a property manager, or facility manager. Your job is to be maintaining that asset, to be providing a very comfortable, pleasing, great experience for the occupants or the tenants. And so ultimately, what is your job? You manage work tickets? Like, that's not even...
Yeah.
What is the relevance?
Yeah.
You're calling it now an IWMS, but it's for work tickets. So clearly, there's been a divide between operating technologies and then basically IT tools, softwares like a CMMS or an IWMS. The progression is going to have to be that the operating technologies need to come into that tool, that workflow, because the equipment is smart enough to know, hey, I'm broken. Someone come fix me, as opposed to waiting for you to be sitting in a 75-degree room and calling down for someone to get in the ceiling and troubleshoot when the equipment can tell you what's wrong with it. So it's logical. I think it has to do with change and change management. And also, if you've got a P&L here, you got a P&L here, and all of a sudden one's going to evaporate a little bit. Those are tough decisions, but you've got to get with it because ultimately you're going to be left behind if you cannot understand how to make a building become much more digital.
And like an anecdote I can share with you is, sometimes I'll have a conversation with somebody in the operating group of a building who says, well, I spent a couple hours of my day reviewing BAS alarms, typing them into the CMMS. And you could argue with the labor shortage, which also has been a big topic at this event, you won't have that person with the 4 hours to do that anymore. So what do? There was an interesting post from Andreessen Horowitz, big venture capital firm. They called it the messy inbox problem. And they said they called it a wedge strategy for AI is connecting two things, not necessarily by building a very heavy duty integration. It's just build an agent. An agent is kind of a nebulous term, but it takes data from one place and puts it into the other. And I actually thought that's a perfect example of what we probably need.
We could do that. I can say from some of the different systems that are out there, they're not expensive to implement. And they can tell you a lot more than just a fault. They can, monitor everything from humidity in the air, comfort to actually oxygen levels, healthy, So the more sophisticated those tools get, I think the more helpful to say, you know what, someone better get up there because of this.
Exactly.
The AI might struggle with that unless, and I think you'd want it in your core data when we talk about the data. However, if you're not comfortable with that, that's a brilliant solution to just have it talk. It beats the swivel chair. Okay. So I guess what you're doing is saying, hey, let's not have someone read the ticket and type it in. Let's have AI do that swivel chair. Which I think is a stopgap, is a great solution.
The meme of the control room where you have 15 screens and you have one swivel chair and it's,
Right. And I think when I think of service requests, people think of a CMMS mostly as a work order tool, but I want to just go back to it for a minute because the most important thing that tool does is it is the registry of every asset in that building and its current condition, because that is what you use to all of your life cycle and capital planning. It is literally how you make your business case to go replace that cooler or whatever it is you want to do. So in my mind, I think that we've got to really think about asset management as part of the maintain cycle and the life cycle planning, which is every investor cares or corporation. So it's an important topic, and it's one that people think is boring. It's becoming a hotter and hotter topic because of the cost.
Especially with the FDD, CMMS play there as well, and then obviously controlled. But when you think about AI, you've got to tidy up that data first, which obviously has been a key topic of the last couple of days.
Well, the other thing too is there's some data is very hard to manage and some is a lot easier to intake. And you talk about speed to success. If you're getting clean data from an energy management tool, from a BAS tool, from the equipment itself, that's phenomenal, great data that you can use and put against something that maybe you start looking at it and saying, well, this doesn't make sense because my inspection of my people told me this was in great shape because it's this age or whatever, but the data is telling me a very different story about this piece of equipment, that it's failing And so that in itself, if you've got hundreds of sites, it really does help you prioritize and start ranking priorities on replacement, not just based on age or equipment type. It's getting more into the functionality of the piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And we've had very briefly, but over the last, many years, you've had a phenomenal career working for some of the largest and most respected organizations in our space. Everyone talks about, I say everyone, a majority of people that we speak to talk about the industry being a step or two behind from others in the space. From your standpoint, given what you've seen in your career so far, like where are we on the maturity scale of technology advancement and adoption?
I think the technology is far ahead of the adoption by a long chalk. And the other issue I think we do have, though, is there's so many solutions out there, and having a team being able to rationalize and having the resources, like the work you're doing here, is actually very, very important. The reports you give out, you track the M&A, because you have so many things you've got to test and look at. And if you know that something is becoming a category killer and it's safe and it's trusted, it makes it a lot easier to put in front of your client. Because if you do think of the larger firms, most of them are advisory firms, right? They're service providers, but they've got to give great fiduciary advice, and they're not going to be taking a ton of risk on a valued client. So they will look. There's nothing wrong, actually, with being kind of a very, very fast follower right now. I'll watch someone else fail, and then you just pick up where that happened. And I think it's never been more true than now. I mean, everyone wanted to be the first to advance, and I think we've seen over the last couple of years that can be a winning strategy or a really losing strategy. So,
with you advising clients on technology, how would a technology vendor get ahead? Just because you mentioned there, but when we think about different applications or even categories, there's dozens of companies now that I appreciate this is a sweeping statement, but they all do the same. So, like for you in your role over the years, how are you moving the needle on getting technology adopted based on what the clients need?
Well, a lot of the firms, when they come in, where they get their opportunity to present to their internal team, really they need to be listening, because some of them have like we do this, and you don't even know it, but you really need us. And that client doesn't want to hear that. It might be interesting. Send it in the paperwork. Listen to what the core problems we've described are. How do you solution it? Be very open and honest about where you might have a shortcoming, but how you'd shore that up. Because they're going to go with the group that, one, we believe is going to be there. If we think like you're on a last hope and prayer and we're it's probably too risky, for a client to be adopting. It does really matter. Who are you? What's your track record? What is your funding base? Acquisitions aren't so bad when you're putting strength together. So I do think a lot of due diligence just on the wherewithal of the organization itself. And then what is it looking to solve? And are they going to be there? And then not only that, are they going to deliver? And do they really understand what our core case is? Or are they trying to get in the door with that because they're actually trying to sell us something else?
Adding to that real quick, if you look at, especially within the smart building landscape, it's interesting to see how long many of the companies have been in the market. It's not like we have a lot of 3-5-year-old companies. We have a lot of 10 to 15-year-old companies. And if you talk to users of a lot of those solutions, they've been using those solutions for years, if not a decade or more. So churn is extremely low, which I think makes it actually hard for companies to scale because they're butting up against a peer that's already embedded in a solution. But to your point, if you're selecting a new technology, you're probably, what I tell firms and clients I work with, you're probably going to be using it much longer than you think. You
become complicit.
Yes.
So here's a problem that I'm hearing currently. The real, I'm not going to say bleeding edge, but the more cutting edge teams, corporate real estate teams, investment teams, they've been doing it for years. They've been working with partners for years. They haven't seen their partners really advancing, and they're telling them, oh, stand back, you're moving too fast. So what they're saying is, we think it's gotten stale. We think our approach is stale. And you know what? We're ready for a game changer. We're ready now to completely shift gears because we think our old model was for then. And we are open to a new model. So what is next? What puts us future forward? So I do think there's a lot of openness right now with clients to say, we're comfortable with this. It works. What's next?
well, from your standpoint, what is next?
What is next?
It's going to be one of my wrapping questions.
Yeah.
I think it is getting far more comfortable with creating a much more integrated ecosystem. And I will tell you that some people don't like the word integration.
Yeah.
So whether you're integrating or you're ingesting data from someone else, it doesn't matter. It is creating a much better view of all of the things that are happening and not just the HVAC, understanding what's in the lease data, understanding what's going on weather-wise, understanding, bringing these components in, creating a more kind of digital, clean data environment that now you can apply AI and you can get some incredible insights because you should also be ingesting market data from outside. What are my competitors doing? And you can get that from market resources just around recent deals done. What are the comps? So I think to create a dynamic operating environment as opposed to one that's much more around maintain and manage.
Yeah.
But it's more like maintain, manage, predict and respond and share insights with the client about where you should be going on your roadmap.
So from your standpoint, would you say it's fair for me to say that we have the technology, now it's about how we integrate, how we use it, how we apply it to different use cases?
How we think about it.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd close my comments with people look at things as pet projects. Like you were talking about, you got the two teams and the one team wants to integrate and they're saying, why?
Yeah.
You need to take one step back. You do need to look at the area that you're responsible for, how it impacts the business, your portfolio, whatever. You do need to look at what are you doing right now? People, process, tools. What are you doing? Okay. What threats are there? What strengths? Do a SWOT. Understand the environment. Listen to what people are saying is great and what really they've got insights. Build a new operating model. Build it. Create a blueprint for it. Okay. That blueprint will be very clear then on, okay, what tech is out there that can help me put a workflow in? What tech is out there that can talk the best of this? What partners can I find on the AI? And you've got now a strategy and a vision that everyone understands where they sit in your blueprint, and it makes it clearer for how they affect and then how you program.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're running out of time. One final question before we wrap up. What, if you could, change about space?
Break down the fragmentation.
Yeah.
Very beginning.
Yeah.
People talk more to each other. Be open to new models. Because I think people are still saying, that's great, let someone else do it because I'm so comfortable in my lane. The lanes need to start to come together.
Integration, data infrastructure, optimistic, pessimistic, or realistic? 2026, what do you think?
I'm
Surprised, but
optimistic. Optimistic.
Maureen, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us here.
Thank you very much.
Well, just the Maureen on the gas.